Alright, here we have a Lakewood Model 202 from 2002. Um, Got this years ago from a flea market. I traded a Lasco Cool Colors fan for it because I actually kind of wanted one of these. Back when I was in high school, middle school, we had this agriculture class, and in that room was two fans. One was one of these. It was a little bit older, I think, because it had the open back grill. You'll see what I mean when I do that later. And the other one was an avocado green P23. The P23 was pretty clapped out. It had a cut cord. All the grill was beat up. And yeah, it just was overall in really bad shape. And I offered to buy that fan, but need to remind you, this thing was beat to crap. And he was like, "Oh, I'll sell it to you for $50." And I'm like, I'm not paying $50 for a clapped out Lakewood. And to this day, I have yet to find a P23 in green. But also in that same classroom was one of these Lakewood 202s. And I remember messing with that a lot because I was that kid that would play with fans. But this was in the same agriculture classroom, and I remember messing with it whenever he gave us free time, which was pretty much all the time in that class. But anyway, I got this because it reminded me of my high school years. And these are actually kind of rare fans. It seems like a lot of these older Lakewood brace bladers are getting kind of uncommon. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, they're crappy fans," which, I mean, yeah, they're not the greatest. But the early 2000s and older ones were actually pretty decent. Now, the later ones, those were pretty bad. This one is somewhere in the middle of being okay and being okay. It's somewhere in the middle of being a decent fan and being a piece of crap. And we'll get into that in a minute. Anyway, enough rambling. Here's the Lakewood name. It's got the brace blade fan blade. And there's the hub. This thing's actually in pretty good shape. I don't know if that person that I gave the Cool Colors fan to still has it or not. This actually still has a pretty solid metal frame. It's not cheaped out quite yet. There's the back of it. Now, what was interesting about these Lakewood 202s is they were packaged in saran wrap with a cardboard insert on the front that advertised all the features on the fan. I'm not sure where they sold these exactly because I don't quite remember seeing them for sale. I remember seeing the older versions of these with the handle and the knob on the top for sale because I remember buying one new back in 2003, which I think was around the same time this fan was made. But yeah, honestly, kind of wish I would have bought one of these new back in the day. I don't know why. I just kind of like it for its weirdness, I guess. It's like a Pontiac Aztec. You either like it or you freaking hate it. It's a 3-speed. It's got that lovely boombox cord that we all know and love. Now, what I was talking about, the one in my high school had this opened up. Some of these Lakewoods had vents like this over the motor. I don't know why they didn't continue that on, but they didn't, and yeah. It has the traditional kind of tuna can Lakewood motor, which honestly, this one isn't too bad. I know in these later years they got worse, but this one isn't too bad. And this was your cord storage, and there's your handle. Motor braces are a little different on this. At some point when they made the 202s, they changed the motor braces. And they continued these motor braces on up till the end. And there is information on the bottom here. Model 202 DX, whatever that means. Lakewood Engineering Manufacturing Company, Chicago, Illinois, 60612. UL listed. It draws 2.1 amps, I guess. Yeah, 2.1 amps. It's actually quite a bit for that kind of motor. I don't know if that's leftover stamping from the Macmillan era or what, but we got it on the kilowatt meter here, and I'm going to throw a fan foot on it so it doesn't tip over. Maybe. Well, hopefully it doesn't tip over. But anyway, I'll start it up on high. And for a cheap fan, this actually moves pretty good air. Drawing 0.9 amps on high and 112 watts on high. Go to medium. Now it's not a very quiet fan, but it does move a pretty good amount of air, which was it really shocked me when I first tested this thing back in the day. Because I didn't expect this to move a lot of air, but it's really not that bad. Honestly, comparable to a 90s Lakewood or a 90s Lasco fan, airflow wise. Going 0.73 amps on medium and 89 watts. Go to low. Low speed isn't too bad. It's got a nice white noise to it. It still moves a pretty good breeze. Showing 0.60 amps on low and 72.8 watts. Really not a bad fan, honestly. Back to high. And off. Honestly, I think if Lakewood would have stuck with the steeper pitched blades like this, they would have had decent fans, but they changed it later on to the more shallow pitched blades, and they kind of went downhill from there. The motors got worse too, honestly. But I digress. There is the Lakewood 202 from 2003. Yeah, I believe this one's from 03. So I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.